people later on in the generational chain. Something that's pretty personal and near and dear to me is my mother was subjected to, some physical abuse at a young age. And it was really difficult for me growing up because it wasn't explained to me. It wasn't, I wasn't made aware of it until there was a fit of rage between myself and another family member who just opened up and just dumped the whole can of everything on my head. And I'm like, wait a minute. This same person was so instrumental in making me the man that I am today. And now all of a sudden you're telling me this. So from that moment on, I believe I was 12 or 13, it affected me severely. Not only my relationship with that individual who was the oppressor, but even with the relationship of other family members who didn't open their mouth and say anything to me. So now as a grown man and a father of 3 daughters, I had to see my mother bouncing back and forth with the emotional and spiritual scars of what happened, still struggling to love this person who abused her. And now I'm having to deal with it a different way. By no means the same way that my mother is. But now I'm struggling with loving a person who I did love at one time, but later on the crack was made in the foundation for hatred and, distension between me and this person. It's like, okay, now that affects me and my children and how I present my children to this individual, if I present my children to this individual. So it has lasting effects.
Well, you just touched on it, though. And that goes right back to what I was saying. As these girls get older and they're looking to him, and he's no longer existent or available or reachable, whatever the case may be. And now the new model is here. What do these girls do? What do these families do? Because at that point, they're not engaging them now. So, and I think in the one case of the one young lady, it's been 3 years. So this girl has grown and changed. A lot can happen in a month. We're talking 3 years, and we don't know how long this is going to play out. But if this scenario does occur, and now she has to engage, let's say after 15, 20 years, she's almost she's in her late 30s, close to being in her 40s. How do you deal with that? Because you essentially you don't know this person, right? It's almost like a we call it an institutionalized mindset, where you have someone who went to prison at a young age and they come out and they're looking at the world that was how at 15, 10, 5, however many years it was that they went in. So from the parents' perspective, they're still looking at this as this is my little 16, 17-year-old girl. Whereas because you can only connect at the level that you really last engaged from most people's perspective. So when we look at it from that angle, should this play out, they're going to engage her like a teenager.
Right.
And this is now a grown woman who's been through, based on the other young lady said, who got out of the situation, being, sexually, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of these things. So, how do you help someone recover that's been through all of these things now for all of this time? And in your psyche, you're still thinking of them as my little girl.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Counseling. I mean, it's going to have to go deeper in counseling. Even with the young lady, like you stated, she's older now, but she still could be stuck at her 17-year-old state in her mind. So now she's going to have to, even though you might not want to, you're going to have to get over that hump. You're going to have to go back and deal with the trauma. You're going to have to go back and you have to get some inner healing. You have to, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck at that mindset.
And I think it's such a complex way of dealing with it because each person is different. Each person handles differently. But not only are those things suppressed at that age, but they compound as time goes on. For example, if you get incarcerated and you go in, technology is at one point. Then when you come out, not only do you have to relearn, but you also have to play catch up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So some of these women may have, had kids at this point. So now not only are they still little girls trapped inside an adult body, but now they're responsible for fostering and nurturing other young women and young boys. And it's like at the same time of dealing with their issues, they're having these added responsibilities that have compounded. Life has changed. Society has changed. So now, even with the whole Me Too movement, okay, before there was no real platform or really way of coming out and expressing this stuff. You felt embarrassed. You didn't even want to talk to your own family members or whatnot. Now there are a lot of women who are gaining courage and strength from seeing this whole movement take place that are now able to step forward. I say like things compound and change time goes on. The playing fields are changing so drastically as time continues to go on that people are finding new ways. Like there's new ways of getting at R. Kelly now. We haven't criminally been able to convict him, whoever the forces may be, but now they're finding ways to go at him economically, to hit his pockets, and things that they're doing now wouldn't have been effective if they were to do this a decade ago.
That's true.
So I think there's just so many different ways of dissecting it and trying to answer that question as to what do you do with these young ladies who are now older ladies now after they are phased out from that current situation.
So what really brought this entire thing further into the light was the Hollywood mogul who was brought forth with all of his behind the scenes activities. So here's a question that I posed to you, and this is something that I was really pondering on. So who, with these young ladies having gone through what they've gone through, and with them having been really exposed to what they've been exposed to, some of the most powerful women, and think about this, right? When did all this happen?
Decades ago.
Well, it started happening decades ago, but really a lot of it hit the fan in my perspective along the timeline when Hugh Hefner died.
Okay.
Because all of this is unfolding around the time frame.
Okay.
So
I didn't draw that connection. But.
So I didn't either.
Who are really the most powerful women?
The women that are attached to the most powerful men in the world.
The Playboy models.
Okay.
Because essentially, you have these parties with all of these high influential people. Who knows what's going on in there? But at the same time, we know Toad. And that would be, Stormy Daniels. Said about our commander in chief. All the mushrooms and all that. So I'll call him Toad. Mario reference. Because Super Mario, we'll call him Toad, so we don't have to go all the way down that line. But
that King,
King Koopa. We'll call him King Koopa. There you go. So King Koopa, Toad is he's there. So if someone of his status and caliber is there, who else is there? And not only is he there, but what is being overheard
and overlooked.
So to me, there's a lot of powerful women who know a lot of things that a lot of men are shaking in their boots over right now.
And can I don't want to get too far off topic, but I want us to venture to this as well, because I know a lot of people are making this a cultivated thing.
Come on, we're
one
getting
of the
into
things
that.
that you just said about the Hefner, obviously he's of a different pigment or melanation, but I don't believe that this issue is something that is just as prevalent as it is in our community or in our society. Traditionally, this was imposed on our society, not by people that look like us. So I think it would be very foolish to think that this is something that only heavily affects the black community. The situations of incest or molestation or any type of sexual perversion, or even the capacity for the mental anguish and mental warfare. These were things I don't think that we just created on our own or imposed on our own society or communities. Right. So I hope we get to kind of venture off on that as well. But I just thought of that as soon as you said, the Hugh Hefners of the world, the Koopas of the world.
We'll just
this ain't something that just
we'll call them
us.
I mean, I can see the King Koopa with the little throw over. You know what I mean? But I will call him King Koopa Toad. You know that. Yeah, I mean, but you know, I think about these things, and I'm just like, wow, this is really interesting and amazing that it took one person to really fall for the entire movement to start, which. Nothing happens by circumstance or coincidence. But, when all these things begin to unfold, I look back at it and I'm like, wow, once, this domino toppled, the other ripples started to occur. Mm-hmm. And it started with one of the big blocks in as far as what transpired with the Hollywood mogul. But some of the most powerful women who know some of the most unknown things to the common or the average ear were those playmates.
Sure.
Those Delilahs.
Yeah. So when the first block fell, it's oh boy, it just got real. Am I next?
But who was really asking those questions? Am I next? Because I haven't seen a Lifetime special for Kevin Spacey. I haven't seen a Lifetime special for Harvey Weinstein. So I think the people that are really shaking in their boots right now are affluent people of color who have perpetrated these types of behaviors pretty boldly and blatantly because it was acceptable during that time frame, and now that it's no longer acceptable, it's like, wait a minute. So
do you think it as a race thing?
I think the disparity of how it's portrayed to society as a whole through the lens of social media, the news outlets, things of that nature, I think that they make it more nonchalantly about race, because you see the scrutiny that, and again, I'm not condoning any of these men or their behaviors, but you see the scrutiny that Bill Cosby came under. Yes. You see how they just put him,
my TV daddy,
under the speed bumps, all of that. They just ran over him with tractor trailers
with no
substantial
proof or
evidence.
Right. Now, we're not saying that he didn't do it.
Right.
I have a question. So, if we look at the Bill Cosby thing, I thank you for bringing this up. So, allegedly, he was drugging these women back in the day, and they all to be of a different kind of race. And now, Uncle Bill, he in prison, So, what's the difference between R. Kelly and allegedly, messing with the young ladies, and then Bill? Now, Bill in jail. Now, they only going off of he say, she say in Bill's case. It's no evidence. But the people of the other color get on there and say, this is what happened, They found, Uncle Bill guilty. So why is it that they not finding R. Kelly guilty?
You already said it. What demographic was Bill affecting?
The other.
What demographic was R. Kelly mainly affecting?
Us.
So if we look at it as a society, and I definitely don't mean to make this, a race issue, because, whether they were white, black, whatever color, whatever they suffered was, something that I'm definitely empathetic to.
Yeah.
So I'm not just trying to make it about color, but look at the demographics they were affecting, and look at, just historically through society, the value that is placed on a person of color's life, whether it be pertaining to issues that are related to drugs, with the cocaine and crack disparities, or even in the issue of, sexual assault, black victims versus white victims.
Why do society, why can't we, I just don't understand it. Like, we are important too.
Yeah, but again, if you go back historically, the wars of this nation, we went to war with ourselves over the issue of, the value and commodity of a black life. So I don't see, like I understand what you're saying, but I also see how